Thank you all for being here today to discuss a very important topic, this administration's failed energy policies. Today, we are specifically focused on the actions or lack thereof at the Bureau of Land Management and how those actions impact our nation's current and future energy and economic security. My colleagues have heard me discuss time and again the importance of developing the resources our country is blessed with under the best environmental and labor standards in the world. Unfortunately, this administration has set an anti-development anywhere but America agenda that is making us more dependent on our adversaries who do not share our concern for the environment or workforce. Beyond the blatant issues of outsourcing of resource development to hostile, polluting, and inhumane nations, these actions have severe consequences at home too. According to the latest data from the Energy Information Administration, the average price per gallon of gasoline in my home state is $3.95 a gallon just last week. The average was $1.87 in Minnesota's 8th Congressional District the week President Biden took office. Ladies and gentlemen, it's President Biden that did this. Nationwide, the number of households receiving government help to pay energy costs rose by an estimated 1.3 million last winter alone to more than 6 million, the largest year-over-year increase since 2009. Last year, nearly 34% of American households reduced or skipped basic expenses to pay their energy bills. The constituents I represent and hardworking Americans across this country simply cannot afford to keep going down this path. The simple truth is we will continue to need conventional energy for the foreseeable future. According to the Energy Information Administration, global energy consumption is on track to grow by nearly 50% by 2050, and conventional energy sources like petroleum will remain the largest energy source over that time. While some of my colleagues want to take traditional fuels off the table, I believe we need to be adding sources of energy to the mix, including domestic oil and gas development. And all of the above energy strategy, and the best will rise to the top. If not, we will become more reliant on countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia. The Bureau of Land Management can play a large role in ensuring American energy security now and into the future. Unfortunately, under this administration, the BLM has repeatedly failed to answer America's call. The BLM has ignored the letter of law under the Mineral Leasing Act, which requires quarterly lease sales in eligible states and drilling permits, or APDs, be processed in 30 days. In its first 2 years, this administration leased fewer acres for oil and gas drilling offshore and on federal land than any other administration since World War II. In fiscal year 2022, the BLM approved an average of 233 drilling permits per month. In contrast, the BLM was approving nearly 400 drilling permits monthly in fiscal year 2020 under former President Trump. Even my Democratic colleagues think this has gone too far. In response to the Biden administration's anti-oil and gas agenda, they added language to their so-called Inflation Reduction Act that requires the BLM to hold oil and gas lease sales as a prerequisite for approving permits for wind power and solar power. Despite this direction from the Democratic colleagues in Congress, however, this administration continues their work to circumvent this mandate. Further, the BLM has failed to provide this committee with the information to conduct adequate oversight and has put forth numerous regulatory actions to stifle domestic energy development on federal lands. These include, but are not limited to, the so-called Conservation and Landscape Health. This rule proposed this past spring, which aims to lock up lands through special designations and new conservation leases, which were not created by Congress. And a new regulation on onshore leasing for oil and gas, which significantly increases fees for operators, likely crushing small businesses, and introduces new preference criteria. for onshore leasing, which could lock up thousands more acres of federal lands for leasing. Additionally, the BML has recently taken site-specific actions to block onshore oil and gas development. In early August, the BLM issued new environmental documents for 2 resource management plans in Colorado, which will lock up 1.6 million acres to future oil and gas leasing. And 2 weeks ago, this administration canceled 7 leases in the 1002 area of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, while also locking up 13 million acres in the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska. This administration took similar action in my district, withdrawing over 225,504 acres in my home state of Minnesota, putting off limits the biggest copper nickel find in the world. Banned mining in northern Minnesota. Can you imagine that? These actions make clear that it is not a priority of this administration to keep America strong. They only wish to appease the radical left at the expense of the rest of America. Today, I look forward to a robust discussion on the impacts of these actions and how this administration's policies must change to meet the energy needs for our future.